Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for the 4 o'clock Wednesday News and Politics Show. 3 o'clock was Laura Afonso talking food. We kick off today talking with Jeff Mortimer, the Director of Investment Strategy at BNY Mellon. And he said he's not inherently bullish or bearish, and people keep having whispers of the big R word.
He's right. You know what J.B. Morgan said, the famous line, the kid asked him, what will the stock market do? And said, my boy, it will fluctuate. No one knows. There are too many variables. You can make a wild guess as to when the next recession is going to happen, next stock market crash. There are just too many things in man and nature that could happen.
And it's interesting too how we talked about the market anticipating. Yesterday we saw some major shakeups in D.C. both with Trump's lawyer and of course Paul Manafort
in New York, right?
In New York, and he
fixer in New York and Manafort.
He said the market sort of barely budged. Perhaps
I think
anticipated.
Yeah, I think they're anticipating this stuff. My hunch is the markets are probably anticipating that Trump will not serve out his term. My guess is he'll probably end up resigning. There'll just be sort of critical mass. I doubt if it'll be impeached. I think he'll resign.
Well, did you anticipate, especially both happening yesterday at the same time?
No, the timing, which I'm told is totally coincidental, which is sort of hard to believe, because these news announcements were made within, 20 minutes of each other, something like that. So I found that staggering. I did think for a while, and I feared that Manafort might get off because it's such a complicated case.
Well, you saw that the jury couldn't come to agreement on a number of accounts.
Thousands of pages of documents. What do they have, 37 witnesses? This stuff is really tough. White-collar crime is just brutal. And, Cohen is actually easier because A, Cohen is stupider than Manafort, and B, the number of crimes he was committing seems to have been somewhat fewer than Manafort. Even though the most interesting, the most telling thing, of course, of what Lonnie Davis, now, who used to work for the Clintons, that he said that Cohen is willing to talk about Russia collusion. So that really should be that's the big story. Now, we don't know what that involves, but we do know that Cohen was a total sort of sycophantic valet of Trump for quite a few years.
Sycophantic valet.
Valet, right, sycophantic valet, and yes, your boss, yes, your boss. And so he's very, very close to what Trump is up to, and I'm sure he's got some stuff to sing. How much, we don't know. And Mueller, you got to give Mueller credit. He runs a tight ship. We don't know what he's got.
So it's interesting, I'm sure you saw the reaction yesterday. There was some along the veins of, well, is it really the most corrupt administration, or are they just getting caught?
No, I think it's the most corrupt, because you've got to look at the backgrounds of the people even before they join the administration. Trump is, by a factor of about 10, the most corrupt president. And the people around him are the collection of grifters and con men and thieves that he surrounded himself his entire career. And everybody in New York knew this, and that's why only 9% or something of the people in New York voted for him for president. And whether he's going to end up in the slammer in the fullness of time, I don't know. It could come out of a state court, because he has. You realize the states can prosecute too. All these characters.
So we've talked about this time and time again. Midterms are around the corner, and we talk about the pocketbook. We talk about the pocket, and obviously prevailed in 2016. Does this move the needle, and how are folks going to react accordingly at the voting booths?
Yeah, a bit. I think the Trump fans it's a cult, as Senator Corker, a Republican senator from Tennessee, said. It's a cult now, and they'll follow maybe even off a cliff like those lemmings, those rodents in Scandinavia. But I think, it'll erode the Republican support some. The other thing will hurt them economically a bit is that wages are not keeping pace with inflation. On the other hand, the stock market is up. There's certain things which are good for re-election and good for the Republicans. I don't think it has much to do with. It's more sort of in spite of than because. But there's no doubt about the simulated effects of the tax cuts. It's also, the federal government is borrowing a lot more money. Everybody's borrowing a lot more money. The most distressing thing is corporations are borrowing money to do buybacks, which I don't much like. But, things have been kind of goosed. The unemployment rate's low. It's lower than it's been since, I think, about the last year of Bill Clinton's administration. So that's sort of an offsetting force. So it's basically corruption, massive corruption, the reaction of massive corruption and a strong economy. I think a more fragile economy than a lot of people are willing to admit, because so much is based on borrowed money. But yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Democrats will narrowly take the House. I don't think they'll take the Senate. I think the Democrats will probably win a couple of governorships right now. But a week is an eternity in politics.
A week is an eternity in
That's
politics.
Right, that's right.
Well, let's talk about another national issue that has some
Sure.
local implications here. Let's talk about what transpired in Pennsylvania with the Catholic Church.
Yeah, just
And what
shameful.
we saw
Yeah.
here was a renewed call by several legislators who had put forth legislation last
Yeah.
session to say, let's be on par, at least with Massachusetts, for a
Right.
statute of limitations on childhood sex abuse crimes.
Yeah.
That's 35 years past the age of majority. I believe Connecticut
Yeah.
is 30. Rhode
30,
Island,
yeah.
it's currently 7.
That's ridiculous.
So,
that has to change. That has to change.
number
It should
of
be. It
legislators
should be
turned out.
pretty much in line. Small area, small compact area. It should be pretty much in line with Massachusetts. That's a very serious
Does that prove
offense.
the role and the power of the Catholic Church in
Well,
the state?
I don't know so much the power of the Catholic Church now, but certainly in past years, it was certainly very powerful. Even the first time we lived here, the bishop had a lot more power than, of course, it's true all over the place, had a lot more political power than he has now.
Well, it is interesting. We did have
much
the
more
piece this week
influence.
about the Catholic Church is under fire and under heat in a number of areas,
Right,
whether
right.
it's the St. Joseph's Pension Fund, where the potential is for the
Right.
pensions of the lay persons. And
But,
now, again, the legislators making the call here. Because apparently there was a deal cut last year, or there was
Yeah.
a deal put on the table. It wasn't cut. It was the Speaker's office wanted 15 years.
Yeah,
Carol
yeah.
Hagan McEntee
Yeah,
was saying 25, and they all came out this past week and said, no deal this year. It's 35 or...
Yeah, and I think 35 is fine. I mean, that's a serious, it's a kind of physical assault kind of case, and absolutely, I think that's fine. Again, I think this didn't happen before, because this sort of thing didn't happen before, because most of these cases were hushed up. There are payoffs made and all this stuff. And the other thing is, we said a minute ago, the Catholic Church used to have much more power, especially in southern New England, than it has now. I mean, I remember when Archbishop Cushing, later Cardinal Cushing, in Massachusetts, was effectively the most powerful guy in the state, politically and even economically, because they own so much property, and educationally. And that's one sad thing about all this. I'm speaking as the husband of a former art teacher in the Catholic schools. They had great schools, in which they were serving the needs of poor people, and in the hospitals, the health care. The Catholic dioceses around the country did great social welfare stuff that government wasn't doing, and I think that would be missed. Yeah.
Speaking of welfare and state or corporate welfare,
Yeah.
if you will, let's talk about the Paw Sox.
Yeah, I think it's very
Worcester.
hilarious. Yeah, I think in the Worcester thing, I think all that was done. Remember, we've been complaining for a year. What's going on up there was all done in secret. And I think that maybe a little buyer's remorse going on, because this is going to be astronomically expensive. It's
You
based
have
on,
a little gleeful tone about
well,
this.
yeah, because it's so predictable. It's this huge. They're going to borrow. Worcester is going to borrow $100 million, not including interest. We're not including interest for.
With an emphasis on the Worcester.
Yeah, on Worcester, right. And, somehow with the hope that there'll be enough revenue generated by ticket sales and development around the stadium to pay for it. There's absolutely no indication that's going to happen. As our colleague Josh Fenton has said, and it's been said by many, many economists, it doesn't make any sense. The ticket sales are falling at minor league teams. Even major league teams are having problems. And the other thing is sort of economic cycle-ish. The stadium is supposed to open in 2021, right? You were up there the other 2021. When will, my guess, I know we don't know, but there's certainly a good chance we'll be in deep recession then. And the period up to then, interest rates are going up. So how does this work? They talk about, Worcester, the second largest city in New England. It's a little misleading. The city itself, the metro area, is much smaller than Providence.
Well, it's interesting.
Much more.
I was in Pawtucket today. The governor and the Mayor Grabian finally, here we are, Wednesday came out.
Yeah.
But both of them, basically made the same.
They
speech,
tried.
Is that they tried?
I
but
give them
it was
credit.
they tried, but we weren't going to do anywhere near close to this. We couldn't compete with this. This basically what they said, a ludicrous offer coming from Worcester.
Yeah, I think macroeconomically it is ludicrous. It's hard to see how it's going to work. It will make people in Worcester, or at least baseball fans, feel better for a while. And not everything in life is money. If it makes people, whatever percentage of the people in Worcester are going to go to the baseball games, 2%, 5%, it may make them feel better.
Well, did you see as well? I mean, let's be honest. I don't know quite the breakdown in Worcester of again the Yankee fans to the Red Sox fans.
Yeah, that's pretty much
to what we have
90%
here.
Red
It's
Sox
much more
there.
Red Sox fan, and one of the things that's been pointed out since some of the details were revealed on Friday was this language of an intent to purchase build a stadium.
Right.
It was all a AAA baseball team.
Yeah, we picked that because, of course, these guys come and go. I think the thing to remember about baseball executives and baseball owners, unlike the fans in the cities, they are not romantics. They go where the money is. They want to maximize their profit. The romanticism is on one side.
It's very much from the fans.
The sheep are romantic. The shepherds are capitalist.
Well, we had the piece today. There was a former Telegram exec who made the point, pointing that out, that very point, saying, "Hey, Worcester, you could end up with the Pawtucket Pirates." Okay.
That's right.
You might not get your beloved AAA farm team of the Red Sox.
That's right. And they point to like the renovations in Baltimore, the Camden Yards and all that. But you want to go to? Has Baltimore really improved a lot with Camden Yards? I guess right around Camden Yards.
That
area. I've been there.
The Inner Harbor. But that's it. But you go
but
several
the rest
blocks
of the
away from
city,
there.
well, their shows was The Wire and stuff. We'll show you what's that's Baltimore.
That's the city.
So it doesn't seem to have caused a massive improvement in the city.
As you said, for the shepherds, but perhaps not the sheep.
Yeah.
So I've gone through my cheat sheet. What's on yours?
Yeah, let me see. What else are we going to talk about? One thing, you talk about a place like Pawtucket, sort of struggling old mill towns. Why not just disincorporate, and then have the state split up the territory amongst neighboring communities? That's actually, I suspect, been suggested. But why can't people think about that? That may be the solution.
That's outside the box.
And the state can do it. State can. The cities and towns are children of the state. They can do that. That may well happen. There's also, moving along with other economic development plans, there's David Collins, who's a columnist for the Day of New London, suggested maybe that legalizing prostitution at Foxwoods would be a good thing to kind of keep them going. As you know, the big casino houses have had a lot of economic problems lately. Mohegan Sun and Foxwood, both of which are allegedly owned by Indian tribes. And so he said, throw in the mix prostitution, And my reaction is, why not? It's no more immoral than losing all your family's money at the slots or at the poker table. Why not? It's what made America great. Diversification is good. We're all in favor of diversification.
Very interesting proposal.
And the other thing, I just do this brief rumination on air conditioning. In the old days, because New Englanders refused to admit that it got hot. In fact, it gets just as hot as Florida, maybe hotter, just for not as long.
So you ruminate on AC, and what's
we
your
used to go down to
conclusion?
the cellar in my time and sleep in the cellar. These big, granite walls and stuff. We'd go down there, and then of course, in the turn of the last century, a lot of houses had sleeping porches facing the southwest, where the prevailing wind comes from. So I think maybe we should sort of
return to sleeping
diversify.
porches?
Yeah, because air conditioning, it makes you cool. It makes everybody else hotter. As you're running an air conditioner, it creates much more heat than cool.
That is true.
So I'm sort of thinking about how to address with that. And there's some other things I'm going to talk about.
But you'll have to
blue
wait to read
states.
it. Okay.
Blue states and red states, and how red states are generally takers of federal money and blue states are givers. Except for Rhode Island.
Except for Rhode Island.
Right.
As always, we're an
As
outlier.
always, that's right.
So if you want to read Bob's ruminations, read them on Sunday. It's the must-read in Rhode Island. Bob Whitcomb, as always, thank you for taking the time to come down. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here with our next guest in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.